All right, so you're ready to take a deep dive into self-improvement and motivation with BrainLift 7. We're going to break down their episode and see what practical advice they have.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, it seems like you are ready to get going, take some action.
Yeah.
And BrainLift 7 starts with this really cool stat, right?
Yeah.
They say that if you improve just 1% every single day, you can be 37 times better in a year. Does that motivate you?
It's pretty amazing, right? Just think about that for a sec.
It's huge.
Yeah, it is. Little tiny changes, they don't seem like much in the moment, but they can add up to some really big results over time.
Yeah.
But before we get into all that, the how-to stuff, BrainLift 7 starts by challenging us to think about, what self-improvement actually is. It's more than just setting goals.
Right.
Right.
It's not just oh, I want to achieve this thing and then I'm done.
Exactly.
It's more about this ongoing journey, right?
Yeah.
Of learning and evolving, kind of becoming the best version of yourself,
Yeah, it's a process. And they talk about the importance of discipline over motivation.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
We often think we need to be super motivated to change our lives. But motivation, it comes and goes, right?
Yeah, it does.
But discipline, that's what helps us build those habits that stick, even when we don't feel like it.
It's it's like having a reliable engine, in your car versus just these random bursts of energy that fizzle out.
Exactly. And they connect this idea to mindset,
Right.
fixed versus growth mindset.
Right. So someone with a fixed mindset might say something oh, I'm just not a math person, and they'll kind of give up easy. But someone with a growth mindset, even if they're struggling, they'll say, you know what, I can learn this. I just need to put in the effort.
Perfect example. Yeah. And someone with a fixed mindset, they might avoid challenges altogether.
Right.
Because they're afraid to fail. And they see failure as proof that they're not good enough.
Oh, I see.
But someone with a growth mindset, they embrace challenges.
Right.
Because they see them as opportunities to learn and grow. It doesn't matter what the outcome is. It's about the process,
Totally, yeah. It's that bring it on attitude.
Exactly.
So having a growth mindset, it's all about being open to learning and pushing your limits, even if it means getting a little uncomfortable sometimes.
For sure.
Then BrainLift 7 jumps into habits, and they start with that famous Aristotle quote. You know the one, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
It's a good one, right? And it just makes me think about how much of our lives are shaped by those little things we do every day, almost without thinking.
Absolutely. And then they get into morning routines. Now, I know you're a night owl, but have you ever noticed how a strong start to the day just makes everything else feel easier?
Oh, for sure.
They suggest waking up early, getting some exercise in, planning out your day. So I'm curious, what does your ideal morning look like, even if it starts a little later in the day?
Okay, well, while I might not be up for a 6 a.m. jog or anything,
Yeah.
I do find that, having a quiet hour to myself before I start work makes a huge difference. I'll make a cup of tea, stretch a bit, just clear my head. It's not a traditional morning routine, I guess, but it really sets the tone for the day.
I like that.
And BrainLift 7 also talks about James Clear's book, Atomic Habits.
Oh, yeah.
You familiar.
Love that book.
It's all about those tiny changes, like making your bed every morning, which can actually lead to bigger results over time.
It's incredible, isn't it? Clears argues that, you don't have to overhaul your whole life at once.
Right.
Just focus on those tiny 1% improvements.
Yeah.
Imagine if instead of hitting the snooze button every morning, you got up and did 5 push-ups.
Oh, yeah.
It's small, right? But over time, it could have a big impact, not just on your physical health, but your sense of discipline too.
Yeah. What about you? What small change do you think you could commit to, even if it seems insignificant? That's a good question. Maybe drinking more water. I always forget to stay hydrated.
Yeah, I hear that.
But speaking of things we tend to put off, BrainLift 7, they don't shy away from procrastination.
Yeah, we all do it.
They get it. Everyone struggles with it sometimes. Our brains, they just love comfort and routine, It's they resist change. But they offer some cool techniques for breaking through that procrastination barrier. Have you ever heard of the 5-second rule?
The one where you count down from 5 and then just do the thing?
That's the one. Sounds kind of gimmicky, but
Or it does.
It's surprisingly effective.
Really? Tell me more about it, because I actually read about that somewhere, but haven't tried it.
So the idea is that by counting down and then immediately taking action, you're basically interrupting your brain's tendency to overthink and hesitate.
Oh.
It's like giving yourself a little mental push, right, to get started before those doubts creep in.
So it's about breaking through that initial resistance.
I can see how that'd be helpful, especially for those tasks that just feel daunting.
Oh, for sure.
Or unpleasant.
Yeah.
Brain Lift 7 also suggests breaking down large tasks into smaller, more manageable steps.
Oh, yeah. That's key.
Makes sense. Right.
Totally. Instead of getting overwhelmed by, like, cleaning the whole house, you just focus on cleaning the kitchen first.
Yeah, exactly.
One step at a time. And then there's the Pomodoro technique. Have you heard of that one?
Mm-hmm.
It involves working in focused intervals, like 25 minutes with short breaks in between.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much you can get done when you eliminate distractions and just concentrate,
Yeah.
For those short bursts.
Oh, absolutely.
And then they talk about another aspect of self-improvement that I think is super important but often overlooked.
Okay.
Confidence.
Oh, yeah. Confidence. Big one.
Right. And they really stress that confidence isn't something you're just born with.
Yeah.
It's a skill. You can develop it.
It's so true.
Just like anything else. And they talk about the power of positive self-talk. So replacing those negative thoughts, the I can'ts, with more empowering ones, like I'm learning or I'm getting better at this. It's about retraining that inner critic,
Yeah, it's like turning down the volume on that negative voice in your head and turning up the volume on the supportive, encouraging one.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just about what you say to yourself, but also how you carry yourself.
Your body language, right?
Yes. They emphasize the impact of body language on confidence.
Yeah.
Like imagine walking into a room with your head held high, making eye contact, smiling.
Yeah.
Even if you don't feel super confident on the inside, that posture can actually trick your brain into feeling more confident.
Oh, wow. It's like that fake it till you make it idea.
Right.
And you know what? There's actually science behind that. I read somewhere that studies show that acting confidently can actually lead to real changes in your brain chemistry, making you feel more confident over time.
That's so cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. By acting the part, you actually start to believe it.
Exactly.
So, but here's the thing, right? Like motivation, confidence can fluctuate.
It does.
So how do we stay motivated, in the long run, especially when those inevitable challenges and setbacks come up?
That's the million-dollar question, right? But Brain Lift 7, they offer some pretty insightful perspectives on that, too. Actually, they compare motivation to a battery.
A battery?
Yeah, like a battery that drains over time.
Okay.
And just like any battery, it needs to be recharged.
Oh, interesting.
So they suggest some really powerful ways to keep that motivation going strong. And one of the most important, they say, is having a strong why.
A strong why?
Yes. Like understanding the deep reason behind your desire to improve. Why is this goal important to you? What will it mean for your life? Having that clear, compelling why, it can fuel your motivation, especially when things get tough.
I see. Yeah.
And they also emphasize the importance of your social circle.
Oh.
The people you surround yourself with.
It's like that saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Exactly. Think about the people you spend the most time with. Do they inspire you? Do they motivate you? Or do they kind of drag you down?
Oh, yeah.
If you're constantly surrounded by negativity, it's going to be harder to stay positive and driven yourself.
It's like trying to run a race while carrying extra weight.
Yes. It slows you down, makes it way harder to reach the finish line.
So who you surround yourself with, that makes a huge difference.
It does. It really does. And finally, Brain Lift 7 talks about tracking your progress and celebrating those wins, no matter how small.
Oh, yeah.
It's about recognizing how far you've come,
Yeah.
giving yourself credit for your efforts, like those little rewards along the way. They can be incredibly motivating.
It's like that feeling of checking something off your to-do list,
Yes.
It gives you a sense of accomplishment.
Exactly.
Encourages you to keep going. This has been a really great deep dive so far.
I know, right? We've covered so much.
We've talked about mindset, habits, confidence, motivation, the people we surround ourselves with.
It's like we're really getting to the heart of what it means to, become our best selves.
Exactly. And we're just getting started.
There's a lot more to explore, and I can't wait to share some more insights and reflections in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, stay tuned. It's really interesting, as we dive into all these different pieces of self-improvement, right?
Yeah.
From mindset to habits to confidence. It strikes me how interconnected they all are.
They really are. It's like they all feed into each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like this upward spiral of growth.
I like that, yeah.
For example, if you develop a growth mindset, It makes it easier to embrace those challenges, right? Which then helps you build resilience and confidence.
And then that confidence can fuel your motivation to keep pushing forward, even when things get tough. It's like this amazing domino effect.
It is. It's amazing. And you know, those atomic habits, that concept we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
that plays a crucial role in this cycle too.
Oh, how so?
Well, by focusing on those small, consistent improvements, we're gradually building momentum. We're creating this foundation for lasting change.
Right. It's like building a house, right? Brick by brick.
Yes.
Each brick may seem small and insignificant on its own, but together they create something strong.
And each brick represents a small victory,
Right.
a step closer to our goals. And Brain Lift 7, they emphasize celebrating those wins no matter how small they are.
Yeah, I like that.
It reinforces those positive behaviors.
Just like giving yourself a little pat on the back, like, hey, I'm doing this, I'm making progress.
Exactly. And it helps keep you engaged in the process.
Yeah.
Speaking of long game, I want to circle back to something we touched on before. The whole thing about surrounding ourselves with the right people.
Oh, yeah. That's so important, that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with idea.
Yeah, that's often attributed to Jim Rohn.
Oh, okay.
But it's really powerful how much our social circles can influence our thoughts, beliefs, even our behavior.
It's huge.
Think about it. If you're always around people who are negative or cynical or just unmotivated.
Yeah.
It's almost like being stuck in a room with energy vampires.
Oh, yeah. I feel that. That negativity can be so draining. Makes it so hard to stay positive and focused on your own goals.
It's like trying to run a race while carrying extra weight.
Yes.
It just slows you down.
It does. It makes it so much harder to reach the finish line.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you surround yourself with people who are positive and ambitious and supportive,
yeah,
it's like being in a room with a bunch of cheerleaders who are all rooting for you.
Oh, that's a good feeling.
It is, right.
Yeah.
They lift you up. They encourage you. They help you see the best in yourself and your abilities. They remind you that you're not alone on this journey.
Yeah, you're back.
They do. Yeah.
And those cheerleaders, they can offer you support, encouragement, even accountability, which is so helpful when you're trying to make those changes, the lasting ones.
Yeah, so true. So it sounds like if you're serious about self-improvement, it's essential to take a look at your social circle and make sure that it's aligned with your goal.
Yeah. It might mean spending less time with certain people, the ones that are draining your energy.
Yeah.
And actively seeking out those connections with people who inspire you, motivate you.
That makes sense.
It's about creating an environment that supports your growth, that helps you become that best version of yourself.
Okay, so let's say, hypothetically, you're already surrounded by great people, but you still find yourself struggling with self-doubt or you're procrastinating.
Yeah, that happens. That's where self-awareness comes in. Brain Lift 7, they encourage us to understand our own patterns of behavior, figure out what's at the root of those challenges.
Okay, so if you notice that you tend to procrastinate on certain types of tasks, you got to ask yourself why. Are you afraid of failing? Do you feel overwhelmed? Are you just not clear on how to get started?
Could be all of those things.
Yeah.
But once you figure out those reasons, the underlying reasons for your procrastination, then you can start to develop some strategies to deal with it.
So maybe you need to break the task down into smaller steps, or maybe you need to talk to a friend, get some support from a mentor, or just remind yourself, of your why.
Yeah, any of that could work.
And Brain Lift 7 really emphasizes that there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
When it comes to self-improvement, it's about experimenting and finding what works for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's a journey of self-discovery. It's continuous learning, and it takes effort and it takes patience.
Yeah.
You're going to have setbacks and challenges along the way, but the key is to keep learning, keep growing, and never give up on yourself.
Never give up on becoming the best version of yourself. That's so important.
It is.
Wow. We've covered so much in this deep dive into self-improvement, haven't we? I mean, we've talked about mindset and habits and confidence and motivation, even the people we surround ourselves with. It's like we've been peeling back all these layers to see, what it really takes to become our best selves.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the key takeaway here is that, self-improvement, it's not like a destination. It's more like a continuous journey.
It's a process.
Yeah, exactly. There's always something more to learn, more to grow and more to explore.
Always room for improvement. Before we wrap up, I'm curious, you mentioned earlier about a turning point in your own personal self-improvement journey. What was that about?
Oh, yeah, that. Well, for the longest time, I struggled with overcommitting. I wanted to say yes to every opportunity, every request, every invitation. I think it was like a combination of wanting to please people and also like this fear of missing out.
Oh, yeah, I can totally relate to that. It's so easy to fall into that trap of trying to do everything and be everything to everyone. But what happened, when you kept saying yes to everything?
Well, eventually I hit a wall.
Mm.
I was just spreading myself way too thin. I was overwhelmed, constantly stressed. I wasn't giving my best to anything or anyone. And it just started to take a real toll on me.
So how did you break free from that cycle of overcommitting? Like, what was the turning point?
It was gradual, it wasn't like an overnight thing, but the key for me was learning to become more mindful of my commitments and learning to say no more often. It was tough at first, especially because I didn't want to let anyone down.
Oh, it's so hard to say no, especially when you're a people pleaser. Like, you don't want to disappoint anyone. But it sounds like you realized that, saying yes to everything was actually hurting you more than it was helping.
Yeah, exactly. Saying no to some things, it actually freed up my time and energy so I could focus on what truly mattered to me, my priorities, my passions, my well-being.
And I bet that shift had like a ripple effect, right?
It did, yeah. I mean, I felt less stressed, way more
Mm.
focused, and definitely more fulfilled. And I was actually able to make real progress on my goals,
Hmm.
and even create more space for self-care, which is so important.
Yeah, it's huge.
It was like this big reminder that sometimes saying no is the best way to say yes to yourself.
Oh, that's so good. It's like so much of self-improvement comes back to self-awareness, right? It's
Mhm.
about understanding your own patterns, your strengths, your weaknesses, and making conscious choices that align with, your values and goals.
It's a lifelong journey. Like we said, it's all about learning and growing. And there will always be new challenges, new lessons to learn, and new opportunities to kind of discover more about yourself along the way.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this episode, I want to leave you, dear listener, with a question to think about. What is one small change that you're willing to commit to today to move closer to the best version of yourself?
What one action, no matter how small, can you take to start building that momentum on your self-improvement journey?
Remember, even the tiniest step can make a big difference over time. It's all about consistency and persistence and believing in yourself.
So keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving to become the best version of yourself.
This is The Deep Dive, signing off.